Welcome back to Entangled Observations. If you like my content, if you like videos like this, please leave a like and subscribe and ring the notice bell, and feel free to leave a comment. I love to read comments, and I read all my comments. It really helps the channel out too, and yeah, so I'd appreciate it. But what I want to get into here now is the idea that, has China won? Is that what's happened here? It kind of seems like it to me. Okay, I was looking for a book, and I haven't been able to find it, but it's called The Grand Chessboard. I read it in the 90s. I bought it when it was brand new, actually. I even remember buying it because I thought it was so interesting. Little bookstore in Penticton. But, so it's got to be around somewhere. It's got all my notes in it and stuff. I hope I haven't lost it, but I haven't been able to find it. Anyway, in that, he made a whole bunch of prescriptions, and sort of as my life has been progressing, time has been going on and whatever, I've seen that he really laid out some kind of a big blueprint that a lot of our rulers and elites, or the deep state, or whatever you like to call them, seem to be following, at any rate. And one of the most absurd things in there that I read, and I mean, I remember I marked it out. If I had the book, I could show you. I don't know where it is. I have it in my mind that it looks a certain way, and it probably doesn't. So when this happens, I generally have to go through my entire library and read every single title, because I have an idea, it's certain size, certain color, and it just isn't that. So that's probably what's happened. But anyway, so the reason I'm wondering, and I'm proposing whether China won, is because China's had such massive growth and just an explosion, in its economy. It's really breathtaking what's happened with China. And the West, not so much, right? We've just been sort of puttering along like we always do. So to a certain extent, China's big explosion is understandable. Our wealthy elite sort of just moved all the jobs over there and all their capital investments over there and shared technology with them, which, despite what everybody says, that's what they did. China maybe stole some of it, but a lot of it just got shared. And that was one of the prerequisites of being able to set up a factory there. So, and now they are communist, sort of. Not in the classical sense. I mean, they call themselves Chinese with, or communism with Chinese characteristics. That's absolutely accurate. They have a single party, and there are factions within that party. But one thing interesting is that the Americans are all the time talk about a uniparty. A uniparty. What is una? Una one? Yeah, one party, huh? So that's interesting. And then I go back and I look at my books, by Brzezinski, called The Grand Chessboard. And in it, he prescribes that what the United States needs to do in order to dominate the world, and basically that's all he is talking about, is completely dominating the world, that what they need to do is set up a system so hideously corrupt. I wish I was kidding. So hideously corrupt that any government on the earth can lobby politicians and spend money to get policies, military actions, or whatever else that they want passed. And so in his mind, this was a sort of a democracy. And we see that playing out today. His plan. Now, at the time I read it, I thought, this is patently absurd. Sort of the same thing that I feel with the Great Reset and the World Economic, the Klaus Schwab book. When I read that, I just have page underlining of this and that thing that just seems patently absurd. And, I think Brzezinski's idea is patently absurd. I think it's one of the reasons we're finding ourselves in the situation that we are today, because the U.S. government has become, probably, I would say, more than likely, the most corrupt government on the planet, right? And that was Brzezinski's. That's by design. That was the goal. That was the plan. And you can see it laid out in Brzezinski's book. And the reason is that it would put the U.S. at the head of the world, and all the nations in the world would have to come and sort of supplicate to the U.S., and the U.S. would get really wealthy by it. And I think what Trump's plan right now is sort of a very similar thing, except instead of accepting bribes, he's accepting tariffs and investments and whatever in order to do business with the U.S., right? Yeah. Had it been implemented maybe a couple decades ago, I think it would have just been a home run. Now I think it's going to be a real fight. We'll see whether it succeeds or not. I don't know. So I'm just laying the foundation for the question here of, did China win? Because there's an old saying, if you can't beat them, join them. We seem to be joining them. Just saying. We're losing our freedoms at a fantastic rate. We've got all over the West, right? All over the West, we've got uniparties starting. I mean, you can't really tell one government from the other. They all pretty much seem the same. Even here in Canada, we've got, left wing, lefter of left wing, and leftist of left wing. I mean, we have a government we have a party that calls itself conservative, but I mean, I don't know what planet they're really conservative. They're not really conservative. They're left. They're leftist, but not as left as the other parties are left. They're even further left. And then what we have in the U.S. is we have sort of a deep state and a government that is completely captured by the deep state and the military-industrial complex and all that. I don't think this is revolutionary, but I think everybody understands that. That's why they call it the uniparty. It doesn't matter who you elect. You just get more wars. You get more arms. You get, more money spent on arms, that kind of thing. So, with all that being said, I'm sort of setting this up as a syllogism, as you can tell. So that being said, the U.S. really crossed a line I never thought that they would cross. And, I've been studying geopolitics. I've been watching politics my entire life. My grandfather got me into it, actually. He was avidly into politics. I started paying attention to it when I was about 13. I said, yeah, this is kind of interesting. What's this? And then my grandmother's cousin was actually the governor general for a bit. So that was kind of interesting. So it got, and they were all very political. And so I've just always sort of watched things, right? That's one of the reasons for this channel, is that my mom and I used to talk all the time about this stuff, and I can't talk with her anymore, so I'll talk with you, because I don't know a lot of people that are into this. But I know on YouTube there are a lot of people that are interested in ideas. Not that this is a political channel, but, yeah. But it will go there sometimes, just because it sort of has to. We live in a political world, right? So all that being said, it's sort of like the U.S. has sort of, and I agree with the premise that it's sort of a uniparty. I agree. And right now, this revolution that's happening, where they're trying to break free from the sort of the Anglo-Dutch grip that has been over the U.S. for since its inception, really. I mean, the U.S. had this revolution to try and break free of England, but did they really? Well, not really. If you go back and you look very carefully, you'll see they never really did break free. Well, Trump's actually doing it. It's amazing. It's wonderful. And that's why in one of my videos, I said the U.S. is sort of going through a renaissance of sorts, because there's a lot of pushback and a lot of money, coming at him, pushing back at him. But I think fundamentally, trying to sever that so that at least the U.S. can be free and independent from royal entanglements, sort of like the city of London and that kind of thing, and from the crown, extremely important. So, and it hasn't happened yet, but it's happened. Well, it has happened. He's done it. I mean, he's doing it. It's amazing. So, love him or hate him, that's a good thing he's done. So, that being said, though, I've been watching this sort of master plan to turn the U.S. government into this incredibly corrupt place, which now there's a lot of arguments. People are saying that the Constitution doesn't really matter much. I know that here in Canada we have something called the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and stuff. And I mean, it's basically, you might as well buy a roll of toilet paper. It doesn't matter. They trampled all over that. And I can see that the same things happen in England. I'm obviously not American, but it looks to me like it's sort of happening in the US too. It looks like there's a huge effort on to bring in, for example, to limit speech there, which would be just an absolute tragedy for the entire world. So that being said, the thing that got me really wondering now whether China won, and I'm suspecting it has actually, I'm leaning towards it's won, is the fact that the government just did this thing that blew my mind. I never ever thought the US government would do this because it's so antithetical to the methodology of the US and just the basic founding principles of the US. The US is now buying shares in companies. So they just bought like a 10% share in Intel. They bought from MP Materials, Lithium America, Trilogy Metals, US Steel Corporation, right? Now, I know it's only 5 companies, but it's a significant step. Because as we all know, in China, you know, these sorts of companies all have to have members on their boards that are from the party, and they have to agree, they have to listen, they have to follow instructions and orders from the government. I don't know if they actually own it or not, but now it's just happened with the American government buying portions of these companies. It's a jaw dropping because it basically puts those companies under the control of the U.S., right? Under the U.S. government. So, and that's basically nationalizing resources. Well, what's nationalizing, socializing communism, right? That's what it is. I just did a video about not lying to expose your shadow self. Well, that is something I live my life by, and I think it's one of the reasons I can, you know, do videos like this. I don't lie to myself. And so, you know, there's quite a chain of command there. So I know it's only 5 companies, but it's a precedence, and it's a very wild one. So money is speech. You know, when that happened, that basically solidified the idea of the world could lobby the American government to get what it wanted, and that sort of the grand chessboard scheme coming into play. It's being implemented. You know, the idea now. I think that plan sort of did put you know, Donald Trump, who's this America First president, at odds with the Anglo-Dutch, you know, so the Bank of London, the King of England, you know, all the elites in Europe that have basically been controlling the U.S. for so many decades. It's put them at odds because either they rule or the U.S. rules. The U.S. has set up this situation where it can rule. And but it can't because it's got these other rules. And I think Trump has decided just, not doing it. But the interesting thing, and here's the thing, is that I never thought that the U.S. would go to actually buying stocks, because that really is communism. Or at least if you don't want to believe it's full-blown communism, you have a uniparty that's starting to buy shares in a company. It's very anti-capitalist, right? It is at least an admission that capitalism has failed. Now, I would argue, and I'll do other videos on this, I'm sure that I will, but I would argue that capitalism, we don't really have capitalism. We have cronyism. We live in a kleptocracy. I would make all kinds of arguments that what we're witnessing right now is not real capitalism. I'm a little hesitant to do that because if you talk to a communist, they'll say, "Wow, the USSR, you know, I mean, yes, okay, communism killed 100 million people last century, but it wasn't real communism." I'm aware I'm kind of on a dangerous path there, so I want to tread it very carefully. But when the US government buys shares in companies, they're directly competing with you buying shares in those companies. And they're directly competing with you having control over those companies and the companies themselves having control over themselves. Now think about that. We're talking about the biggest thief in the country, because and I'm not signaling them out, every country, the biggest thief in the country is the government. So we're talking about the biggest thief, right? Because they can just go into your pocket and take it. They can take your house, they can take your car, they can take your kids, they can take your ID, they can take your bank account, they can take whatever they want from you. Okay? And you can call it government if you want, but I would say no, it's not really. That's a cartel is what that is. So you're taking this cartel, and this cartel, not only can they steal your stuff from you and take your money and do on the regular, right? They can also print money. So this completely, I mean, already it makes the whole market system look really sus. But if it continues even further, it's amazing, because the government can print money to bolster the stock exchange, and then they can compete with everybody. And basically you can't compete with them. I don't care who you are, right? Even Elon Musk can't compete with the US government. Nobody can compete with the US government. And so if they start doing this, you're going to start seeing, policies changing in benefit of one company or another company, this or that, words. As you get older, the synapses start to break down in your brain, and so it's harder to find words sometimes. It's extremely annoying. But anyway, so, if you want to get a business license or something like that, then all of a sudden there are going to be political entanglements, because now your economy is political. It's not just market-based. It's not just based on supply and demand anymore, because now you've got a player in it that can just print money. So that's not supply. And so it looks to me like China won. That's all I'm saying.